Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss the 12th chapter of history from Integrated Social Science Ratna Sagar Class 6, Culture and Science in the Ancient Period. When we talk about ancient India, so it is the Indian subcontinent from prehistoric times to the start of medieval India, which is typically dated to the end of Gupta Empire. And ancient India was composed of modern day countries of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, India, Nepal, and Pakistan. And if we talk about the elaborative periodization of Indian history or the ancient Indian history, it starts from the Indian prehistory, including the Stone Age and the Indus Valley civilization, and then to the Vedic period, then to the Golden Age and of Gupta Empire, and before the Gupta Empire, the Mauryas and the post-Mauryas, Mauryan rulers, uh, which includes the three kingdoms of the Tamilakam, basically the kingdoms of South India, the Cholas, the Pandyas, the Cheras, and not only this, the rulers in ruling in the north and the Deccan, along with these rulers. The Kushans, the Satavahanas, and if we turn into the Gupta period or the post Gupta period, so the age of Chandragupta, Samudragupta, Chandragupta II, and the post Gupta period, including Harshvardhan, as well as the Pallavas and the Chalukyas. Okay, so we have almost covered all these dynasties and empires in the ancient India, and somehow each and every dynasty that ruled India added something to the heritage of India. And we already know that India is a land of rich and varied culture, and that is what we are going to discuss in this particular chapter. Uh, in this particular video, we will be reading about the literature of the ancient period, the literature during the ancient period that includes the Vedas and the associated texts and the epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, the secular literature that includes the works of court poets, Ban Bhatt, Kalidas, along with some ministers also, like Kautilya. We have already learnt about him in one of the chapters, like Vishnugupta or Chanakya. He is also known as Chanakya, also the minister during the rule of Chandragupta Maurya, and Megasthenes, the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, who lived in the court of Chandragupta for many years, and his work Indica. So we'll be reading about these secular literatures also. Along with this, we'll be reading about the accounts of foreign travelers. We have discussed the name of different Chinese pilgrims or travelers who came to India during the rule of different rulers here or different dynasty like Fahin, Yin, Sang, and Ising. So we'll be reading about them also, a bit about them, because we'll be reading about them in brief as we have already read about them in the previous chapters, and the Sangam text as well. We have already discussed Sangam text in during the Sangam age also. So that is what we are going to discuss in this particular video. So, starting from the earliest known literary work in India, the Vedas. Basically, the word Veda means knowledge, and there are four Vedas, as you can see in this slide also: the Rig Veda, the Yajurved, the Samved, and the Atharvaved. All these four Vedas somehow they contain the hymns in praise of different gods and goddesses, and these hymns were somehow passed from one generation to the next orally until they were finally written down. Along with these Vedas, there were a series of texts also, basically the Brahmanas. Okay, These were the commentaries on the Vedas, and each Ved has a separate Brahmana. Like for example, there are two Brahmanas belonging to Rig Veda. Okay, it's Atareya Brahmana and it's Sankhya Brahmana. Okay, like this, every Veda, if each Veda has a separate Brahmana. Okay, so what are Brahmanas? So Brahmanas are basically the commentaries on the Vedas. Turning on to Upanishads, we have already read about Upanishads in one of the classes when we were discussing the growth of new ideas, where we discussed about somehow the growth of two new religion, the Buddhism and the Jainism, where we read about the Upanishads. So Upanishads are books of philosophy, and they are more spiritual and philosophical in content than the Vedas. The word Upanishad consists of three syllables, that is Upa, which means near, Ni, which means down, and Shad, which means to sit. Okay, so Upanishad means to sit at the feet of the Guru to receive the teaching. And most historians say that there are 108 Upanishads. Of these, 11 considered to be the classical or main Upanishads also. Okay, and these Upanishads basically contains the teaching of the religious teachers and saints, and the Upanishads gave importance to the worship of one God, and it discusses how individual soul can be one with the universal or cosmic souls. And the main philosophy of the Upanishads, however, is worship and devotion. Okay, turning on to the next slide. The next one, the associated text related to the Vedas, are the Puranas also. How Puranas are sacred literature, okay, and there are 18 surviving Puranas, and the word Puran literally means old, okay, and they were composed by Rishi Veda Vyasa. There are 18 Mahapuranas. Okay, the 18 Puranas are also called Mahapuranas, the great Purans. And these 18 Mahapurans consists the Vishnu Puran, the Narad Puran, the Bhagavad Puran, the Garud Puran, and like the Matsya Puran. There are more, many more are there. I'm not naming all of them. The Purans also give the concept of time as well, as we know that there are four ages or yugas, isn't it? The Krita, the Treta, the Dwapar, and the Kali, isn't it? So these Puranas also gave us the concept of the yugas, or the four ages or time. Along with the Purans, there is one book, that is the law book, also known as Dharma Shastra. Okay, the law books, the Dharma Shastras, are also a part of ancient Indian literature. These Dharma Shastra basically deals with the laws and manners and customs of the people in general. So the literature, the Vedas and the associated texts which we discussed so far were somehow a part of the age of Rig Veda. Okay, whether it was the Vedas or the Brahmanas or Upanishads or Purans or the Dharma Shastras. Turning on to the next one, next slide, that is also a part of the Vedic age. That is the epics also, and we will turn into epics also. The thing which we are left with is the Buddhist and the Jain texts also. So the Buddhist and the Jain texts also form a part of Indian literature. Okay, the Jataka tales. So this is the Jataka tales. So it deals with the stories about the previous births of Lord Buddha, and the Jain texts are also a part of Indian literature. The Jain texts basically they contain the teachings of Mahavira, okay, and some literature works also, okay, of the Svetambars and Digambar sects as well. Okay, so turning on to the next slide, that is the epic, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. You all have heard about these two epics. The Mahabharata was composed by the sage Ved Vyas, okay, means Rishi Ved Vyas, and it is the story of two sets of cousins. You might have seen the serial on Star Plus, the Mahabharat, isn't it? So you guys already know that it is a story of two sets of cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and the battle has been named the Battle of Mahabharat, which was fought between these two sets of cousins. And the Mahabharat not only tells us about the fight, about the battle that was fought between these two sets of brothers. It also includes the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, Bhagavad Gita, the conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna on the battle field. Okay, and initially it had 8,800 slokas, and it was called Jaya Samhita. Later it had 24,000 shlokas. At present it has 100,000 verses and is divided into 18 books. Okay, turning on to the Ramayana. Ramayana was composed by Rishi Valmiki, sage Valmiki. It is the story of Ram, a prince of Koshala. Koshala was that time the capital of, and the capital of that Koshala was Ayodhya. Okay, so the story is about the prince Ram and his war with Ravan, the king of Lanka. And Ramayana has 24,000 shlokas, and it is divided into seven books. Okay, so these are the two epics of the ancient period, which are also very much important. Turning on to the next slide, and turning on to the secular literature. When I talk about secular literature, what secular basically means? So, secular literature basically means the writings which are not religious. Okay, these include stories, poems, plays, biographies of kings, accounts of foreign travelers, and the books on politics and science. The Arthashastra by Kautilya, the Indica by Megasthenes, and some more accounts of Fayan, Huinsang, and Ising, and the Sangam literature are also a part of the secular literature. So, Kautilya and Megasthenes. Kautilya was the minister of Chandragupta Maurya, and Megasthenes was the ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, who lived in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, and these two uh, courtiers somehow they wrote about the administration during the period of Mauryas. So the Indica, which was written by Megasthenes, it tells us about the political, social, and economic condition of life during the Mauryan period. On the other hand, the Arthashastra it deals with how to govern the empire, and it describes the administration of the Mauryas. Okay, so Arthashastra was written by Kautilya and Indika was written by Megasthenes. The Arthashastra describes the political system of the time and the art of governance. It also gives information on the political and military administration. Similarly, Indica tells us about the political, social, and economic conditions during the Mauryan dynasty. Okay, and we have also heard discussed in the previous chapter, that is during the first empire, the Mauryas, that Megasthenes has also described the city of Patliputra also. And the another valuable literary source is the book written by Ban Bhatt, the court poet of Harshvardhan. He has written Harsh Charita, that gives the description of the early life of King Harshvardhan. So Harshcharita, basically written in Sanskrit, it is the biography of the King Harshvardhan, and this book lists the military and cultural achievements of Harshvardhan. Turning on to the next slide, the works of Kalidas. Kalidas was one of the court poets of Chandragupta II, and he was one of the Navratnas or the nine James that lived in the court of Chandragupta II, and he wrote a lot of poems and plays in Sanskrit. He is also considered one of the greatest poets and dramatists of India. And his famous works here, as you can see the image shown in this one, in this particular slide, the Meghaduta, Raghuvams, Ritu Samhara, Abhigyan Shakuntalam, Kumar Sambhava. Okay, so these are the famous works of Kalidas. Let me repeat it once more, that Kalidas was the one of the nine Jains who lived in the court of Chandragupta II. Turning on to the next slide, let us discuss the other literary sources as well during the ancient period. So these are the images related to the foreign travelers who somehow came to India, visited India, and they were Fa Hein, Yin Sang, and I Sing. Okay, so Fa Hein came during the reign of Chandragupta II. He spent 6 years in India. Okay, 405 to 411 CE, Common Era, and he came to India for visiting Buddhist monasteries. Okay, and he was the Chinese Buddhist monk who visited India during the reign of Chandragupta II, Vikramaditya. Okay, he is known for his visit to Lumbini somehow, and when he returned back, when he went back, he wrote an account of his stay in India, and his account gives a detailed description of the life of people under the Gupta kings. Turning on to Yun Sang visited India to during visited India, and he somehow visited the court of Harshvardhan. Okay, and he remained here in India from 630 to 645 Common Era. He was a Chinese traveler and visited during when Harshvardhan was having his supremacy in India. Okay, and he spent almost 8 years in the court of Harsha, and he has written in detail about the developments that happened during the supremacy of Harshvardhan, and he also mentioned the life of people during Harshvardhan's rule. I think was the another Chinese traveler who visited India in connection with Buddhism. Okay, and he gives useful information about the social, religious, and cultural life of the people of the country during the time he visited India, and he stayed here from 671 to 695 Common Era. So, turning on to the next slide, that is last but not the least, the Sangam Text. We have already read about Sangam Text in our previous class when we were reading the Sangam Age, basically the Tamilakam region. So, Sangam Text were basically Sangam literature is the name given to the earliest available Tamil literature, and the word Sangam literally means association or assembly. Here it implies an association of Tamil poets that flourished in ancient southern India. The Sangam text mentions the kingdoms of South India, and the famous Tamil epics are Sila Patikaram and Mani Mekalai. If I talk about the first Tamil epic, that is Sila Padikaram, it was composed by Ilango Adigal. Okay, the story revolves around an anklet, and the name literally means the tail of an anklet. Okay, Sila Padikaram means the tail of an anklet. Okay, and there is a chief character in this particular epic is Kanangi, okay, who seeks revenge on the Pandya king for her husband who was wrongly put to death. Okay, and it gives us a lot of insight into the contemporary Tamil society, the polity, the values, and the social life of the people. The second epic, that is Mani Mekalai, was composed by Chittilai Chattanar, and it is a sequel to Sila Vadigaram. The author's main aim was to propagate Buddhism in South India, as the work espouses the values of Buddhism over other religions of the time. So these are the two famous Tamil epics. With this, we come to an end of this particular video, in which we discussed about the literary sources or the literature in the ancient India, where we discussed about the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahmanas, the epics Mahabharat and Ramayan, the secular works, literature, in which we have discussed about the accounts of foreign travelers, about about the works of the court poets, and we have also discussed about the Sangam text. In next video, we'll be discussing about the art and architecture, in which we'll be discussing about the different architectures that were constructed during the ancient India, and we'll be discussing about the painting, also the art that includes sculpture and paintings that were somehow added to the charm of the Indian ancient history. With this, I call it a day. Have a nice day, and do read the topics first and then watch the video.